Don't worry, we don't bite. All right, guys, let's kick this thing off. So today's presentation or today's training, we're going to go through the listing presentation. And so the first part of it, I want to run through our listing presentation, just kind of go through some of the pages in there and do some training and kind of some open discussion around best practices. And then Tuan has volunteered. He's been practicing our listing presentation. He's volunteered to do a role play. So he's going to do the role play, and then we'll be able to kind of learn from seeing him do it and give him some feedback and stuff like that. And that's on the agenda today, so we can all improve our listing presentation process. So I want to first start off by just asking you guys some questions, and start off with just some feedback. In your guys' experience, or what do you think are some of the most important components of a listing presentation, a successful listing presentation?
Explaining how you're different and what you'll do.
Explaining how you're different, what you'll do. Shital, what do you got?
Understanding what seller needs.
Understanding
what
their
is he
needs.
expecting.
Yep. Blanca, you have anything?
Same thing. I'm more understanding what the client's needs are, what's plan B, why are they selling? And once you have that information, then the presentation falls into place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else, you guys? Anything else that stands out to you that hasn't been mentioned?
I think also we want to make sure, the listing presentation starts from the phone call for the first second. And we want to make sure they feel a little bit more excited to see you, right? Because when they already give you the appointment, they cover already 50%, they're going to work with you. So when you meet with them, another 50% that you have to show your energy and ready to help them to make sure why they should choose you or not someone else.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. All right. A successful listing presentation usually starts before the actual listing presentation. It's the first initial phone call or initial screening, right? So I think we should start there, right? To have a successful listing presentation, you have to have a really good first call where you're showcasing your personality, you're getting to know them, you're asking a lot of questions so that you can truly understand what their motivation is, right? If you don't understand what someone's motivation is, there's no way to move them forward, right? And so I think that's the first thing is you got to figure out, why is this client thinking of selling? Why did they get to this point to even talk to an agent? And what does the next plan look like? What does it look like once they sell? Where are they going? That's the most important part, I think, out of, because when you understand that, then you can guide them in the right direction, right? If you don't know why they're selling, or if you're leaving that until you get to the appointment, I think you're already behind. Because if you know certain things up front on that initial call, you can be that much more prepared when you get there, right? So like if you know they're going to sell and maybe they have concerns about taxes, you can already have information about taxes so that when you show up, you already are having that conversation versus having to discover it for the first time once you get there, right? So if you want to get good at a listing presentation, you need to get really good at that initial phone call, the pre-screening call, right? And I think the other thing is just making sure you're setting the stage for what's going to happen in the appointment, right? You're pre-selling your services. So if you set the stage like, hey, once you find out everything, once you ask the right questions, hey, when we meet, I'm going to go through A, B, and C, right? And it has to relate back to whatever they told you. I'm going to talk about, what you need to do to prepare your home. I'm going to talk about the taxes that you asked about. I'm going to talk about this. So you're giving them a reason on why they should meet with you, right? And like Tuan said, you're getting them excited to meet with you in the first place, right? So I kind of want to start there. You guys mentioned a couple other things, like showing why you're different, stuff like that. I think we got to be careful with showing how you're different, because sometimes, I'm trying to figure out how do I word this. Showing why you're different could mean different things, right? So I don't think we need to get super fancy with like how we're doing our presentation. What I've found in going on a lot of listing presentations, hundreds and hundreds of listing presentations in my career, is that the biggest reason someone's going to do business with you is because they trust you, And the way that they are going to trust you is by them understanding that you understand what they need, right? So if you ask the right questions and you understand what they need, where they're going, why they're going, what their concerns are, and you discuss those with them, that builds trust. The other differentiators like our marketing and stuff like that, it does play a role, like Patrick said, in kind of making you stand out or separate yourself, but it's not as important if there's no trust there, right? Like you can have the best marketing, but if the client doesn't care about that, or if you don't get why they're selling, or you don't get that it's an emotional process for them, then the marketing isn't going to kind of cover that up, is what I'm trying to say. So just keep that in mind, guys, is the trust factor and understanding their needs is probably the biggest driver, right? Okay. I'm going to pull up our listing presentation and I'm just going to go through some of the pages. And I'm going to try to get through this in like 15, 20 minutes, and then we can have the next part of it be Tuan doing the role play. You guys feel free to ask me questions or chime in if there's something you notice when you're doing the listing presentation, or if you have questions on why something is there. So I always like to start off with the front page, guys. There's the reason that we titled this, selling your home, our proven process for netting the most money on your home sale. This is a marketing tactic right here, right? So just the title alone is we already want to set the stage that we have a proven process, right? Versus I've seen some companies where it just says listing presentation. Listing presentation, sorry. My dog's barking, 1 second. Sorry, guys, the benefits of working from home. You got the dogs barking, but having this name right here, guys, is already setting the stage on a couple things. It's setting the stage that, hey, we're going to do what's best to help you sell your home for more. And we have a proven process that we follow. So we're not winging it, right? And so that's why we have specifically this title. It could be a different title, right? But there's specifically a title so that we're setting the stage like, hey, this is what we do and this is how we do it. And we've done this a lot of times versus just listing presentation, right? So that's important right there, guys, just to so going into this process. The other thing that we have next is going to be setting the stage for what we're going to cover. Because sometimes clients will start asking you questions right away. Like, you ever have those clients that try to take over the presentation and they're like, well, what's your commission? And they already want to ask that. So by us having these points here, it already tells them that we're going to cover all of those different things. So, hey, Mr. Client, I'm sure you have a bunch of questions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that come up, but I just want to let you know we have a full agenda today that I'm going to go through. I'm going to talk about us. I want to really understand your needs. I know we spoke on the phone, but I want to dig a little deeper. I want to talk about our process. I want to talk about some secret weapons we have. I want to show you some examples, the market, compensation, right? Commissions, all that stuff, the different plans, what the timeline looks like, some guarantees, and then, if it is a good fit, what it takes to start the process with us. So you're kind of laying all that out so that before they even ask a question, you're kind of already saying, hey, I got all this covered. And then what I like to do here is I ask them, hey, is there anything that's not here or anything that's important to you that you want to make sure that I cover, right? And so I would highly recommend you guys take a note down, a mental note, or write it down, but always ask them, is there anything that's important to you that you want to make sure that I cover in my presentation? Why do you guys think I asked that question?
Gives them an opportunity to speak.
Opportunity to speak. Yep. Shito.
If you tackle what they have an issue with, most of the presentation is done there. So you know what they need and you just have to, take them to the next step.
Correct. Right. So it's almost like asking for the answers to the test before you take the test, right? Because remember, if I ask them what's important and they say, hey, commissions, I want to know how much you charge. Well, then you're going to probably have to spend more time on that commission stuff, right? Or you might know that they're commission sensitive or they're shopping around. Or if they start asking about our marketing, right? then you might know that they're more sensitive to marketing. Or if they ask more about like, hey, what do I got to do to get the home ready? You know, I'm really concerned about, do I have to do any repairs? Then you know they're more concerned about the process, right? And so by you asking them what's important to them, or is there anything you want to make sure is covered, you'll know where to spend more time in the presentation. And so remember, it's not valuable just to go through a bunch of stuff if it doesn't mean anything to the client, right? And so you want to focus on the things that are important to the client, and then you might have to breeze through some of the other stuff because maybe that's not important. Have you guys ever ran into any clients who are, just raise your hand, who are just worried about commission? That's all they care about is commission, right? Yep. Have you had clients who are really concerned about the marketing, how you're going to market their property?
A little bit.
A little bit,
The
right?
money.
Not
It's
as
about
much,
the money.
right? Have you had clients who are more concerned about like how they're going to get this whole process done, like getting the home ready, or if they have to buy another house, and they're more concerned about like the transition and all that, right? And so, yeah, and you know, or how long it's going to take, or how much effort it's going to be required, right? Because they don't want to disrupt their life. And so what you'll find, guys, is that the marketing, although it is important, it's not usually the most important things to clients, right? A lot of clients are concerned about having a smooth process. And then when they talk about commissions, it's not necessarily that they want to pay you the lowest commission. They want to make sure that they get the most amount of money at the end of the sale, right? And so it's just, that's something you got to keep in mind. Now, 2 questions that I wouldn't answer up front in a presentation is, what is my home worth? Or how much is my commission? So if somebody asks you up front, hey, well, can you just tell me how much you think the house could sell for? Let's say you start off and you're starting your presentation and they cut you off and they go, hey, you know, can you tell me how much the house is worth? Or what do you think you can get me? If you answer that question right there and you give them the wrong answer, or an answer that isn't justified with data, you can eliminate yourself from them hiring you right there on the spot. Because they may have a price in their mind, right? And if you say a price that's lower than their price, they're going to lose confidence in you, right? But when you're able to go through the explanation and show them the data and show them the comps and show them other properties and all that stuff, they're going to come to a realization of what the price is. So you don't ever want to be responsible for the price. You simply want to be the person that presents the data, right? And so I've been trained, you know, to never answer that question up front. Always say, hey, that's a great question. And in my presentation, we're going to actually talk about the market right here. And I've prepared a lot of data. So we're going to go through the market, what the market's doing, what the trends are in your neighborhood, and some of the findings that I came up with. And I'll show you, you know, what the data is pointing to for your price range. And we'll get to that in a second, but I know that's important to you. Or if they say commission, how much is your commission? Hey, I know that's important. I have a whole section that we're going to go through where we're going to show you actually how the compensation works, because there's some changes that have happened. And I'm going to break down different options for you, and we'll figure out a commission strategy that makes sense for you. So I always want to acknowledge it and then deflect it to, hey, we'll get to that in the presentation, right? That's an important part, guys, because some people will enter and they'll start talking about things that just gets them kicked out of the appointment, right? And then the client, like, even though they're being nice and letting you finish, they're kind of already made their mind up that you're not the guy, right? Or you're not the girl. So you got to be very careful with answering that question up front. Any questions, guys, so far? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so moving through some of this stuff. I like to spend a little bit of time about who we are, who I am. I try not to go too like crazy with this, right? Because I feel like, at least for me, I feel like I'd rather talk more about them and less about me. And so I touch on it. You know, I kind of highlight the points. Hey guys, as you know, this is who we are. This is how long we've been in business. This is what we do. This is how many sales we have. I don't know if you got a chance to check out our online reviews. We have this many reviews. And then I kind of summarize it, right? Who I am, what I do, the value that I feel like I bring to the table. And then I say enough about me. Let's get to know you and kind of why we're here at the table today, right? Or why we're here on the Zoom or whatever you're meeting them. So learn how to like summarize this stuff in your own words, so that you're not like just spending too much time just talking about yourself and bragging on yourself. Okay. This slide right here, guys, probably the most important slide out of the whole entire presentation, right? Is understanding your needs. Remember, if we had a good call on the phone, we already have an idea of why they're selling, right? But you don't know how many agents they spoke to. You don't know maybe how long ago was it since you had that call and now you're meeting them in person for a formal listing presentation. So you always want to go back and recap their needs, right? And I always say, hey, I know we spoke on the phone. I got some preliminary info, but I kind of want to dig a little deeper because I really want to understand your needs. And if it's important to you, it's important to me. And we want to tailor this process to your needs. And then I'm just going to go section by section. Why are you selling? You know, remind me again why you're selling. I know you said you were, and let them talk, right? Just kind of start the conversation. You want to let them talk. And this is where you want to ask multiple layers of questions, right? What's the plan after you sell? Have you thought about keeping the property? Do you have an ideal timeline? Where do you want to go, right? This is where you're going to really dig deep, right? This slide should probably take you the longest out of all the slides, because this is where you're just kind of talking and you're just getting them to open up about the process, about what their goals are and what their needs are. I always like to understand next, you know, if they sold a home before. You'd be surprised, guys. A lot of sellers that you meet with have never sold a home. It's probably a big percentage of them they've bought. Because if you think about it, most people only buy maybe one home in their lifetime, right? Not even everybody owns a home. And if they do buy a home, it's probably one, maybe two is a smaller percentage. But most people have never been on the selling side, right? They've been on the buying side, but not on the selling side. So you want to also figure out what they know. Are they a seasoned seller, right? And have they sold multiple times? Or is this the first time they're entering into this, so that now you know, okay, I got to explain more stuff to them and I got to prepare them. So have you sold before? Hey, do you guys have any idea of what's going on in the market right now, right? Are there any challenges that you foresee? And then you're going to want to really unpack those and open those up, right? Ask follow-up questions to really feel like you understand them. And then one thing that I like to do, guys, is I like to reiterate what they said. So, okay, Mr. Client, so what I'm hearing you say is the plan is this is the plan. Did I get that right? What that shows is that, hey, they just told you a bunch of stuff. You're listening to them and now you're repeating it back to them. It creates that alignment of like, hey, you really understand my needs, right? So repeating it back to them, guys, is really important, so that there's an understanding. Yep, absolutely. Patrick, reiterating is the key. It shows that you're being a good listener, right? When you're able to say it back to them in your own words and they're like, yep, you got it right. We're locked in. Okay. And then what matters most to you, right? This is where I'm trying to gauge like what type of client they are and what they expect, right? So is price or convenience most important to you? Let me ask you guys a question. How many of you guys think that people ultimately just want the highest price? Is that true or false? Thumbs up if it's true, thumbs down if it's false. Or what do you think? It's maybe, it's in the middle?
In the middle. It's in the middle, I would say.
Yeah. Why would you say it's in the middle, Blanca?
Because sometimes it's not necessarily the price, but more the convenience, the process, the service, and making sure they're being taken care of to the next step.
Yeah.
Ultimately, if the numbers make sense, then that's perfect. But for the most part, too, I would say it's the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's always that balance of price versus convenience, right? Highest price versus the ease of the sale. If we're experiencing that right now with one of Melody's clients. You know, we went in there giving her suggestions on, you know, on what she can do to get the highest price, but for her, it was going to be too inconvenient. Melody, you want to unmute and right? What was the main point with your client?
She's been living in her house since 2004. So to do everything was just too overwhelming for her. As a result, she's did a ton of decluttering, like it's night and day from when you saw it, Enrique, but at the same time, to go in and paint and do some basic updates just wasn't in her scope. So now we're actually at a point where we're possibly going to accept a counter offer today. It's a little bit below list, but it gets her to her goals. So she's technically meeting her goals financially, even though it's not at the highest price, but it's going to be done and she can move forward with her next purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that the process was done was convenient for her, right? You know,
Yes.
so that's an important factor to understand, guys, is it's not always about price. It's a balance of the best possible price for the most convenient process, right? And then that's going to change whether the property is vacant or occupied. When it's occupied and you're trying to get a home ready for sale, it's a huge inconvenience to, you know, totally disrupt your life and put the home on the market. So typically what I've seen is that people that occupy properties, they don't want to go through the inconvenience of getting the home ready. They want to do the minimum that they can to get a price that they're comfortable with, right? And so that's where you guys got to really figure that part out. And so if we're pushing, you know, hey, let's do all this stuff to your house, let's do all this stuff to your house, you might scare them away, you know, and that's the fine line where we gotta, you know, we got to walk that fine line where we're helping them get the best price, but keeping it convenient and within their scope of what they want to do. So I always ask that question, right? And you can dig a little deeper, right? Well, hey, do you guys plan to live here during the process? Do you guys have somewhere to go? You know, is getting every single dollar out of the property important to you? Or is it getting a fair price that you think is fair and while still kind of keeping your life intact and not disrupting your life? You know, so you can ask that in different ways, but really understand that. I always like to ask, what do you expect from your agent? Some people don't know how to answer this question, right? Sometimes they go, well, I don't know, just, you know, but then you'll have some people that are really like A types. And this is where you're trying to figure out what type of personality they are, right? There's some people, I see it's like two different answers. Either I don't know, I just expect them to be good and, you know, or it's like, they have all these demands. And then now, you know, like, hey, this person is maybe like an executive, or maybe they're used to telling people what to do, or they have like, they're a certain type of personality, or maybe they have a certain type of job where they really expect things from people. And so you have to know that going in, because you're going to have to adjust depending on that client, right? And then how can we make this easy? This is also gauging, just like, hey, if it was up to you, like, you know, how can we make this easier? Is there anything you want us to take off your plate, you know, or any concerns you have with the sale that you would want us to help you figure out so it's easy, it's an easier process. So I'm spending a lot of time, guys, on this slide because I think this is like the make or break slide, right? If you don't get this slide right, none of the rest of the presentation is going to matter, right? Because this now tells you which path you're going to go down depending on how they answer these questions. All right, so I want to stop right there because we're digging deep. Who has questions so far? Any questions, comments, or feedback so far? Right. We're good. We're understanding this stuff. Okay. Next couple slides, I'll kind of breeze through these. Our proven process to sell for more. This is now when we're going to introduce the different, you know, things that matter. This slide is just a visual, just to tell people like, hey, if we want to get the highest price, we got to hit all of these 4 things, right? So you're just helping them understand that we got to do all these things right if we want to get the highest possible price. If we you know, negotiate on one of these aspects or compromise, I'm sorry, on one of these things, then the price may not be the highest possible price, you know? So like if you don't really do much to the property, you might not get as high as the home down the street that really took the time to prep the home. You know what I mean? So it's just understanding that if you want to ultimately hit a home run, these 4 things have to line up. And some of these are in our control, right? And if you do this correctly, this could mean, you know, 10 to 30% more in your pocket, depending on what the market is doing at that time. How do we execute this? Simple slide on just giving them a visual breakdown of the different steps. We put this in 4 steps to make it easy to understand, right? Step 1 is the home prep. So you can just explain to them what that means. Hey, we'll come in here, we'll make recommendations. You know, we have contractors, we can do property inspections, staging, all that good stuff. The marketing comes next, right? Photography, all the different things, the online stuff. We're going to talk about pricing, make sure we price it correctly so that we're in that sweet spot where we get the most attention. And if we do all of these correctly, we're going to generate offers. And then this is where we come back and negotiate the offers through multiple rounds of counter offers and stuff like that. So you're giving them just a visual of how the process is going to flow. And feel free to elaborate, you know, as much as needed. If they understand it, if they don't have any questions, it's fine to just move on. Some people are going to ask more details in this section. Some people, if you just kind of go through it like I just did, they're fine with that and you could just move on. So it just depends on the client. But I always like to say, hey, do you have any questions about just kind of the general flow of the process? Our secret weapon, this is, you know, right here, a differentiator, you know, like Patrick had mentioned, you know, being able to separate yourself, you know, so this is one of the slides that helps us separate ourselves from other agents, you know, just saying, hey, we have this thing called Zillow Showcase. Not all teams have this. This is because of our partnership with Zillow. It gives you, you know, these extra incentives. It gives you an extra push on Zillow. You know, every agent's going to your property will probably be on Zillow, but how do you stand out from all the other properties? You know, if there's 10 other homes in your neighborhood for sale, how do we make sure that people are seeing our home more than the other ones that are on Zillow? And this is a special feature that we offer that gets you to the, you know, top of the line or front of the line on Zillow. So I like to just kind of explain what this is. And so they can see that, hey, we have these other tools in our tool belt that not all agents have access to. I'll say, hey, let me show you a couple examples of homes that we've done. This one, you could feel free to spend as much time, or you could even just breeze through this one. Like, hey, this is a property where we followed the whole process. We listed it for 1.2. We sold it for 133 in about a week, got multiple offers. I'll skim to the next one. Here's another property. We got 100,000 over the asking price. If you see the photos, we follow the same exact process. Here's another property right here where we got, you know, $200,000 over the asking price by following the same exact process. So the way I just kind of breeze through those 3 slides, I'll breeze through them that quick in the presentation if I need to. I don't need to spend a lot of time like going verbatim through every single word unless the client stops and asks more questions. All right. Market overview. So this is the time when you're going to pull out your data, right? So if you have data that's prepared, this is where you're going to talk about the market, right? How's the market right now? So you're going to give your insight on the market or their particular neighborhood. What are the comps showing? So you'll show them the CMA or the comps that you printed out. Hey, this is what the comps are saying. Have you seen any of these homes in your neighborhood sell? You know, sometimes pulling up photos is also a good idea because you give them a visual. And so I like to have my comps pulled up on another tab where I can actually show them the photos of the property. This way, the reason that's important, guys, is sometimes when you just throw numbers at people, they don't understand it the way we do. If you're like, hey, this one sold for 1.2, this one sold for 1.3, and they just see a bunch of numbers on like a spreadsheet, they can't connect the dots all the time. But when you can show them a photo, hey, this property, I want to pull this one up, and you can scroll through the photos and they can see how it was presented and all that stuff. And then you can tell them the price and what it was listed for, you know, that gives them a visual. And then what they're doing is they're comparing that home to their home, right? So the visual aspect, guys, is important when you're showing data because it helps just take away just numbers and it gives them a visual of, you know, they can see it, right? I like to ask people, hey, what do you think of this property? How do you think this property compares to yours? So let's say there's like a really good comp that sold for like, you know, the high end of the market. Ask them, hey, here's this property, look at it. You know, what do you think about this property? How do you think this one compares to yours? And let them say it, right? Like, oh yeah, this one's a lot nicer. Oh, wow, they really did a nice job on the kitchen. Because then later on, when you're talking about list price, now you have proof like, hey, your property is not worth as much as you thought it was worth because look at this other home. You saw it for yourself. So you're not telling them their home's not worth that much. You're showing them that their home is not worth that much, or you're showing them what a realistic price range is. Why do you guys think that's important, guys?
To avoid the overlisting, overpricing the list and not getting any offers.
Yeah, to avoid overpricing. Why else is it important to like show them rather than just tell them?
A
I'd say
lot
to
of
set it. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just gonna say, a lot of people are anchored to what their Zestimate says, the Zillow estimate. And that doesn't give the full picture of what's the inside of the home looks like versus what their home condition is. So like with my listing, she was like, oh, I want to sell this for 1.6 is where we started. And now we're on the market at 1,298. And we're trying to get close to that at list price because it's clear that in this market today, people value a turnkey home more than wanting to put the work into it. So there's a lot of education that has to be done to get the person to be realistic about where they stand relative to the market conditions.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Great explanation. Mark, what was your take?
I mean, kind of that in a nutshell, to set the expectation for the client of, you know, what their home value realistically is in their market comparable to other homes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, you never want to remember, if we just say like, I think your home is worth this without actually showing them, you can offend them, right? Because everybody thinks their home is the best home or it's worth the most, right? And so you want to be able to tell them, hey, your home's not worth that much without you being the one saying that. You want to get them to make that determination by you showing them the photos, right? So this is why you say, hey, what do you think about this home? How do you think that home compares to yours? Look at the price, right? This is the price. Or even other homes that are on the market, right? Hey, this other home just went. You're showing them the actives, right? This home's for sale like 2 blocks over. Let's pull up the photos. This one's going for this price, you know, which is less than maybe what you thought your home was worth. How does this home compare to yours? And if they're like, wow, that's a really nice home, it's only going for this price, they start to, you know, come to the realization that their home is worth less, right? Richa, question.
I wanted to quickly ask, sometimes it happens that you have the listing appointment and when it comes to the market has totally shifted. So maybe making them aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, you know, and when at the end of the appointment, what I tell them is like, hey, once we decide to move forward, what we're going to do is all of this data is as of today, you know, but if other homes sell by the time we're ready to go on the market or there's new data, we're going to review all that and we're going to reconfirm our final list price before we go live, you know, so you're kind of already setting the stage that it's like the stock market. It changes on a daily basis. So this is as of right now, this is a snapshot as of today. But if your home's not ready for another month, we're going to have to revisit the numbers at that time, you know, and hopefully the market is continuing to stay strong. So yeah, you definitely want to set the stage for that. Okay. How compensation is handled. This is where I'm going to just give them a brief explanation. I try to keep this really simple, guys. Just, hey, you know, when you have a listing agent, you come to an agreement with your listing agent on what their fee is. The buyer is going to work with their agent. They're going to have a certain fee that they're being charged. When they submit their offer, they can negotiate and ask for us to pay commission towards the buyer side. That's all going to be handled as the offers come in, but that's pretty much how compensation works. You know, so rather than going into this long drawn out explanation of like the law and the NAR and the lawsuit and what, like that usually goes over people's head. So I like to just keep it simple. You have your agent, they have their agent, we negotiate, we cross that path when we get there. You know, we agree on a fee for our services, right? So I try to keep that very, very simple. If they have more questions, you can go in more detail, but most people say, okay, I understand. Then I'm going to go through the different levels of service, right? Explaining the different options, what the level of service, what it includes. You know, if we've gone through the whole presentation, they've already seen all the different things we do. And now we're showing them, here's the menu that you get to choose from, right? If they have questions, answer it. Then I want to go through a net sheet. So it's always important to have a net sheet with you on the appointment. Whether you have them pre-printed or you have the Chicago Title app up as one of the tabs and you do it live with them on the spot. In my experience, I like doing the net sheet with them live on the spot. The reason why is it helps them get a visual of how we came up with with that price and the fees and the net. If I have stuff just printed out, it works too. You know, you just kind of want to go explain it. But when we're doing it together, it's almost like we're working as a team. And so me personally, I like doing it with them on the spot, but you can certainly have the net sheets already printed out and just have them in the folder with you. It's totally up to you. I just personally prefer doing it with them. The timeline, this is where now we're getting to the close, right? So, hey, Mr. Seller, you know, if you had a magic wand, when would you like to close and have the cash in hand and be sold? Okay, you want to be sold, you know, by the end of July. Okay, so let's look at what a realistic timeline is going to be. You know, based off me walking through your home, you know, we're going to have maybe 2 weeks of getting the home ready, you know, for some repairs. Then we got to do all of our marketing, which is like the staging, the inspections, the photos and all that. That could take a week or two, depending on how busy our vendors are. Days on market, you know, based off the data, we saw homes are selling typically within 2 weeks, you know, and then close of escrow might be 4 weeks. So you want to kind of paint the picture. Hey, if we start today, you know, the soonest, if everything just goes according to plan, that we can have this deal closed is by X date. And then you're going to see if their timeline is realistic, right? If they wanted to close by the end of July, does that line up? You know, if they wanted to close sooner, well, hey, if you want to close sooner, that means we're going to have to move quicker, or we might have to skip on some of these things, or we may need to adjust the timeline if you're really trying to do it the right way. So I like to tell them the timeline here, and then I like to pull up the calendar. I even pull it up on my phone or wherever online and show them the actual calendar and what those dates look like. And so now what you're doing is you're kind of talking through like when we're going to sign and when we're going to prep and when we're going to list and when we're going to close the deal. You know, that gets them like moving forward. And then your sale is risk-free. Does anybody understand why we do this slide here? Who knows why we put this slide in here, this easy exit agreement? Richa.
To gain the confidence and remove any hesitation they might have, and they can confidently sign the contract.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So this right here is a marketing tactic, right? So you guys understand it's an easy exit agreement, right? What we're telling them is like, hey, if you're not happy with our services, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is. If you decide you don't want to work with me, if there's an issue, give us 48 hours to try to remedy it. If we can't remedy it and you want to choose to work with someone else, we have no problem with that. If there's any outstanding, fees that are due or out-of-pocket expenses, we'll just need to take care of those. But we're not going to keep you hostage if for some reason we're not working out. So we're that confident in ourselves that we know we're going to do a good job. And if for some reason you're not happy with us, we have no problem letting you out of the contract. And I always tell them, a lot of other realtors, they'll have you sign a contract and then like you're locked in. They won't let you out of it until it expires. And then now you're forced to wait. So we don't believe in that. We believe that you should be happy with the realtor that you work with. So this is really like just making like a statement that, hey, we stand in what we believe in. We know we're going to do a great job. Have we had anybody actually exercise this thing? Blanca, we've done a lot of listings. What's percentage have actually exercised this?
None. I haven't had anybody exercise.
None?
It. No.
Yeah. None, maybe 1%. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But it helps us win and secure the confidence of a lot of clients, right? But very, very rarely, I don't think I can't even count like a handful of times out of the hundreds and hundreds of sales we've done where someone has actually done this, right? But the fact that we have it here, and then we will let someone out. If we're truly just not working together well and like it's just not working and we don't feel like it's a good match, we'll let somebody out. If they owe us money, we're gonna have to take care of that. But I don't believe in holding people hostage.
Yeah.
It's actually bad for your reputation. And if you hold someone hostage into a contract when they're not happy, you're setting yourself up for a really bad online review. Right. Okay. Last but not least is we established the timeline, right? So now we kind of recap. Hey guys, so if we're ready to get started today, first thing we need to establish the timeline. It looks like we already have the timeline in place. Let's review and sign our agreement. We'll schedule a walkthrough right away with our vendors. We'll execute whatever plan that you chose, and then we'll get your home sold. And that's the way we kind of conclude it. If any objections come up, guys, they may come up right here, where, oh, we want to think about it, or while you're going through the commission, objections may come up there if commission is an issue. The other thing that I've noticed, guys, is it's very rare. I don't know, Blanca, you can correct me, but it's very rare to sign the listing on the first appointment.
Yeah, usually they want to think about it and they'll either sign the next day or when you set up the follow-up appointment with them, because you always want to set up the follow-up appointment if they're not signing there.
Yeah.
But then there are clients who are like, okay, we're ready. Let's move forward. Yeah.
Once in a while, you'll get the ones that are they're ready. They decided, they love you. Maybe they've already researched you or they were referred to you by somebody else. So they already feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And so we're signing the agreement right on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, if they're like strangers and they're just meeting you for the first time, sometimes they want to go with you, but they just want to maybe sleep on it or talk amongst themselves or something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know we kind of went a little lengthy, guys, but Tuan, we got like 15 minutes. We're going to see how much of this listing presentation you can get through.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to get through all of it, of course, but
Okay.
let's have you at least stop. Let's have you at least go through the first couple pages.
Okay.
And especially focusing on this page right here. Right.
I'm a little bit nervous.
Don't worry,
I've been to a lot of presentation by myself. I never really nervous, but now like a lot of people like looking at me.
Yeah, just have fun with it, right? This is practice, right?
Okay.
We only got like 15 minutes, so let's just roll
Okay.
through as much as you can.
Okay. Can I share my screen so I can scroll it quicker? So you don't
Yeah.
like
Share your screen.
Yeah.
And then Blanca, you're gonna be do you mind being the seller?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So Tuan, you're the agent, Blanca's the seller.
Okay. So usually when I go, I already pre-qualify. I already know like stuff like that. Why they want to move and if they want to sell. So okay. So we just play along with it, right?
Yeah. You got it.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready.
Okay. Oh, hi, Blanca. This is Juan, the real estate agent. We spoke on the phone a couple of times, and thank you so much for meeting with me on over Zoom today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you how we can help you in selling your home. And before we begin, Blanca, I want to assure you that should you decide to list with us today, our goal is to sell your home for the most money possible in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle. So let's get right into it, should we?
Sure. Thank you, Tuan.
Thank you. So as our team, we call it PRG Realty. We are part of the EXP Realty, and our focus is to help you to sell your home for more. With our proven process to netting you more at the closing table. That sounds very good, doesn't it?
Yes, that is our goal, is to definitely sell for the highest price possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we're going to go over to what we're going to go cover today. Okay. So we're going to spend very quick to introduce who we are, who I am, to understanding a little bit more about your need. I'm going to share with you our proven process to net you more. And of course, our secret weapon. And I'm going to show you some case study. We're going to go over about the market overview to make, so that we can determine what is the highest price that we can sell your home today and how long it's going to take. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how compensation is handled, because our team, PRG, we do have a couple of different service plans that you can choose which one make the most financial sense for you. And we're going to, as I mentioned, how long it's going to take. And then we also offer you a risk-free selling guarantee as well. And when we list your home today, Blanca, how the process is going to start. Okay. So do you have anything else that you would like me to touch on today?
No, not at the moment. I'm just excited to see your presentation and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Thank you about that. So first of all, our team, as I mentioned, PRG Realty with EXP Realty, our team has been around for over 20 years and have sold over thousands of homes throughout the Bay Area. And we have sold very close to $1 billion in sales volume. We have over 750 five-star reviews, and we are very proud to be a part of the Zero Flag team. Are you familiar with what that means, the Zero Flag team?
No, I'm not, but I know Zillow because I've been getting a lot of information on the value of my home there.
Exactly. Yeah, Zillow is is a huge marketing company, and what the Zero Flag team is that is not all agent or any all team to be invited to be on a flag team. So we are part of the flag team. What that means is when you list your home with us, your listing will reach out to the consumer a lot quicker compared to the team or agent who are not on a flag team. Yeah.
Oh,
And we do have in-house market team as well. Should you have any question regarding about your, if you want to finance or you want to look for purchase a new home, we do have that can help you with as well.
okay.
And we are part of member of the National Association of Realtors, the California, Santa Clara, and San Francisco Association of Realtors as well.
Okay.
What sets our team apart is that, Blanca, we do have an extensive market knowledge. Yeah, our reputation throughout the area, and we are part of the top agent network as well. We are a very proud of team model, which means that you are not, when we work together, not only you get myself, I'm going to be the main agent, going to take care from A to Z. And also we do have a team behind the scene that can make sure to position your home for the best and also to give you the best experience possible when you work with us.
Okay.
And we do have a preferred vendor. Should you need any touch-up, repair, or handyman or innovation, we do have that resource for you available as well.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's something we'll need some advice from you as the expert of what we should do.
Exactly. And then we're going to touch about that when we go to the next couple of slides for you as well and answer any other questions you might have. Yeah. So in terms of me, I'm a listing specialist, relisting specialist. So I do believe in selling home is more than just a transactions. It's a major life moment. My purpose is to guide you through that moment with clarity and trust. So you always feel like supported and not overwhelmed. Okay. And I'm known for being a person that anyone can talk to about anything, basically about life challenges or worry, dreams, and goals. And I listen deeply to my client, communicate honestly, and help clients feel understood every step of the way to make sure that you know exactly, when we work together, you know exactly where we are in the process. You don't ever feel like surprised, anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and as a listing specialist, Blanca, I study home sales and price every day. As a top, to be a top negotiator in today's market, it's required to have an expertise in our market, and result driven by human instinct, confidence, and strategy.
Got it.
Do you have any question about our team and myself at all, Blanca?
No, very well explained.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to do next is that we want to understand a bit your need a bit more, because what's important to you, Blanca, is important to us. So when we talk on the phone this morning, you said that you want to sell your home so that you can purchase another property somewhere in the same area. So is that still the plan that you are working on?
Yeah, that's the plan. We just want to downsize and buy something a little smaller, but stay in the same area.
Exactly. And you did mention to me over the phone that you want to get this home sold first and then pick out the equity and then move to the next process, which is the purchasing.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And you already make sure that you want to get this sold. You don't want to put a tenant in there in case if we cannot sell it.
No, we need the proceeds for the new purchase.
I completely understand. And Blanca, let me ask you, have you sold home before? Or is that your first time in selling home?
It's my first time selling the home.
Oh, okay. First time. Great. Yeah, I want to make sure, when we work together, I want to keep it as simple, as less stressful for you as possible. And I know probably you heard from a lot of maybe friend or relative when they sell their home, they might go through the long process. So we can promise you're going to go through very simple and keep as much as simple for you. So we're gonna take care of all the stressful for you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So my question for you is, Blanca, what is your impression of the current market that we are in right now, especially in your neighborhood?
Well, it seems like every home is selling fairly quickly from when it goes on the market from what we could see. But I wanted to get your experience on the market and also know how many homes you've sold in our area.
Exactly. And we I agree with you. Home that well prepared and well priced strategically still sell very quick, and many of them actually get multiple offer as well. So we want to make sure when we work together, we want to position your home as best possible, so we can attract as many offer as possible, so we can get the highest price possible for you.
Okay.
Okay, and when we talk over the phone, that you said that you really want to get the home sold. So is the price is more important to you, or it's more like convenient?
Both
Both.
the price and the convenience, because I do need the money to purchase my next home. So
Exactly.
yeah, the price is important, and then convenience is transitioning to the new home, how that's going to happen.
I completely understand. We'll make sure that we can, deliver the best possible, that you can achieve both of that for you as well.
Yes.
Okay. And what do you expect from your next agent, Blanca?
Just communication and clarity, and just making sure that I'm well informed on the market and a realistic number of what everything is going to look like.
Of course, yeah, that is part of my commitment as well. By the end of the presentation today, I'm going to show you how we're going to communicate. So as I mentioned earlier, to make sure that we are on the same page and you know exactly every step of the way.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and is there any other like important thing that you want to know about your move?
No, I think you have it all.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so our proven process in selling your home for more. So what as you mentioned earlier, you have not sold home before.
Tuan, let's stop right there. I just wanted you to get up to that point for now, for that slide. Okay. Let's stop right there. Great job so far, because we're coming up on time. So I want to spend the last few minutes just to give you some feedback so far. Okay. I know we didn't get to go on too much, right? But I think we got at least to the meat and potatoes. The rest is just going to be showing them the marketing stuff. So let's give Tuan some feedback so far. If you want to unshare your screen, Tuan. Maybe Blanca. Blanca's, you've done a lot of listings, and obviously you're playing the client role. So what's some feedback that you can give to Tuan? What are some things that you feel like he did good? And then what are some things that you feel where he can improve?
I think you're being very detailed in the presentation, which is great. You're following the format. Maybe just engaging with the client a little more, like, getting the client to speak a little more, getting them a little more involved after each slide. Some comparisons, just a little more communication from the client. Because sometimes I find that when you're doing a presentation and you're just following, you lose the client, or it's just kind of going over their head. So maybe just interacting a little bit more, getting them a little to interact with you a little more.
Okay, thank you, Blanca.
That's good advice, right? So I want to remind everybody that the presentation is a guide, but you shouldn't read from it word for word, right? It's more a visual so that you can kind of follow the format, but I would summarize a lot of those things and just say them in my own words, right? So like if I go to and also Tuan, I know this is your first time role playing it with us as well too. So I do want to acknowledge that, right? Like you're practicing, you're learning it still. So you're doing a great job for just starting out. But you should get to a point where you pretty much have the format memorized, right? And the visual is more just for the client to follow along while you're kind of talking, right? And so Blanca, let's maybe demonstrate, because I think this will be valuable for the end of this presentation. Let's demonstrate how you go over that, how you break the ice, and then how you go over this page right here.
Are you sharing?
Sorry, my computer's like acting all glitchy right now. There it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so before you even talk about that page, right? How would you break the ice? Now, Tuan, you're going to be the client, right? So how would you break the ice with him just to even start off?
Yeah. Hey, Tuan. So thank you so much for allowing the presentation. I just want to recap and make sure I have everything correct from our conversation. It looks like you're wanting to sell your home because you're wanting to downsize and buy something in the area and stay within the local area. Is that correct?
Yes, that is my plan, to sell it first and then buy.
So for me, it's really important that I'm hitting your goal. Selling your home is not a worry of mine. It's more plan B. I want to make sure we have plan B in place so that we make that transition as smooth as possible for you. So I want to ask you a couple more questions on that. I know that you mentioned you will need the sale of the sale proceeds from this home for your next purchase. Now, have you sat down with a loan agent yet to see those numbers for the new home purchase? Where are you at on that?
I have not yet. Yeah.
Okay.
That is
Perfect.
my next step.
That's your next step. Yeah. So that's definitely something that I'm going to recommend that we put in place as well, because I want to make sure you have a clear understanding of the next step of where you're going to buy. And I have plenty of experience with transitioning from sell to buy. With previous clients, and it gets very detailed where I can possibly negotiate a rent back for you. And it goes more into the timing because it can get a little stressful from that position, plan A to plan B. But that's something that I have experience with, and I'm going to hold your hand every step of the way and make sure that we're meeting all those deadlines and there's no stress involved. Do you have any questions so far about that process?
I do not have any question regarding about that right now. As I mentioned over the phone, I want to get this sold and maybe take a little break first, maybe put in a rental for like a couple months before the next process.
That's great to know, because that also helps me position you in that position so that you make that transition. So thank you for sharing that. I can definitely make a note of that. And I know that that's what matters for you the most. And then what I'm going to go into in the next part of our presentation is going to be the market, so that you know where your home value stands now compared to other homes and how soon we can expect to have your home sold.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go ahead and go into the next process of the presentation.
Okay, let's stop right there. So Blanca, you wouldn't even continue to go with like these other ones here, or you just kind of covered that and then you're moving on?
I'm moving on.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, what I want to point out right here, right? Blanca takes a lot of listings, right? She does a lot of listings. Is she's not necessarily asking every single question on here.
No.
She's asking the ones that are relevant to the client's situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can choose to go, to not ask every single question on here. Just hit on the most important points.
Mm-hmm.
What did you notice on that, Tuan, on what she did on there?
I noticed that she's very like calm and just go through like what I need instead of asking more questions.
Yeah.
If I could give a little bit of advice, Tuan, just know these bullet points, but you don't have to be fixated on the screen. Be more engaged with the client. I'm going to tackle what matters most at a recap, which is more towards the end of the presentation.
Yeah.
When I'm doing kind of like a tying the bow and getting it ready for the next step, I will revisit what matters most for the client, just so we have a clear understanding. This is what I'm recommending based on what you expressed was the need. So I try not to really just like look at the screen. I'm more engaged, but I'm following the format and asking the questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So these right here, guys, like these ones that are highlighted, these are like the main points, right? These are just sample follow-up questions you can ask. So you don't have to ask every single one. Just pick the ones that are going to be relevant to what they need, right? Because then what happens is if you're doing so much talking where you're just like boom, 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 sometimes you lose them, right? So you have to make sure that they are talking back and forth with you. and that keeps them engaged in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And so I think to kind of wrap this up, Tuan, like, you know the information. Like, I like how you set yours up. I like how you put a page about yourself, right, on there.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't read every single line. I would just summarize that in your own words, right?
Okay.
So that it's more conversational and not like the client's watching you read everything. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. You know, sometimes I feel like when we have a presentation in front of them, it's like, oh, my responsible to go through, you know, because
Yeah, not really. It's just a guide. It's just
Okay.
a reference. It's just a reference thing, right?
Mhm.
But it's remember, you can always say like, hey guys, if you guys want a copy of this presentation, I can always send a copy. You know, I'm gonna highlight the most important points, you know, for you guys. And I'm happy to send you guys a copy of this if you need a copy. All right. So pick and choose what you need so that it
Okay.
flows and it's just not like an overwhelming amount of words, right? They're more just like, yeah, Patrick said right here, talking points.
Yeah.
That you need to make sure you hit the main parts of it, right? Because Tuan, I think you're there. If you just make that adjustment,
Yeah.
and just make it more of a conversation,
Yeah.
and pick and choose, you already present yourself really well, right? Like you already do a great job. Your tonality is there. You're excited, you know. Just make it a conversation now.
Yeah, I think that is something that you know, it's so funny that I work in the service industry for a very long time. I'm a hairstylist too. I work with clients very close stuff. I always feel like I'm very good interacting with people. But when sometimes when do you know, something like this online, I'm like, oh my God, it's just a little bit awkward. Because
Yeah.
sometimes when we cannot look at in a camera directly to them, sometimes it's a little bit hard to, like, you know, interact.
Yeah. Sometimes what I'll do, like, I might hit this slide and talk to them, and then I'll stop sharing, and then I'll just talk to them about that. And then when I feel like coming back, then I'll bring the slide back,
Yeah.
and then I'll scroll to a different place. Okay, all right, guys. So we covered that, but let's go ahead and talk about what was important to you. I know you guys wanted to talk about, and then I'll scroll through and I'll skip to the slides that I want. So sometimes I skip slides, right? And so when you're doing it online, like, that's a technique that you can use, is share, unshare, skip to the parts that you need. When you're doing it in person, you could just scroll down to the next slide, or you could skip some slides if you need to skip to them. All right. But yeah, I realized that online, it's kind of like a different method. We're having to like fumble around with the computer and stuff like that, right? So it doesn't have to be verbatim. All right. Let's wrap this up, guys. I know we're a couple minutes over time. I appreciate you guys all showing up. What's one takeaway you got from today? Everybody, actually, let's just go around the room. I'm just going to point to you. Give me one takeaway that you got from today, and then we'll wrap up. So Tuan, what's one takeaway? One thing.
Well, I need to be advice. That's good. You have to be a little more, not too much robotic, a little bit more like interaction. Yeah.
Interactive, more conversational, right? Richa, what's one takeaway you got?
I realize the presentation is not about reading the entire presentation as is, but making it more of a conversation and engaging and asking more and more questions to understand where the client is.
There you go. Excellent, excellent. Mark, what's your takeaway?
For me, honestly, I don't know, it might be a little bit different, but I know how we modified the buyer presentation to have like less slides because it's kind of lengthy. I'm feeling this is something that I kind of want to modify myself too. And maybe like, so that I can, instead of like going through every single point and it taking too long, have it be more of like a conversation. So I think I'm gonna focus on maybe editing it just a bit so that it can be more conversational and just bullet pointed.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I can try doing that too. Throw it into Claude or something and say, hey, like, how can we simplify this? But that's not a bad idea, right? Just make it more simpler and more conversational. Good takeaway. Good takeaway. All right. Who else we got? Patrick, you got a takeaway for me?
Recap slide is always important, just to ensure we're all on the same page after that meeting.
The recap. Yeah, do a recap at the end. Make sure we're on the same page. Excellent. Hayden.
Kind of like what Mark said of you don't have to hit every bullet point, make it more conversational and, feel it out with the client.
Yep, absolutely. Nicho, you got a takeaway for me?
Yeah, I think for me, the takeaway is just preparation in general. Know as much as possible, the client, so that you go in there and understanding their needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing more up front, you can go in there and already just focus on those points. Shito, what do you got? Takeaway. Melody, what's your biggest takeaway?
I think just the initial understanding them so that you can go in and develop that trust right away. For instance, if it's a transition and like with Janet, it was about capital gains taxes and understanding how much that might be and being able to kind of work that into the situation, as well as the understanding what services we have, but then understanding their tolerance for pain, if you will, in terms of being able to do those things so that you don't push them away by trying to be all things to one person.
Yeah, excellent feedback. Richa, do you have one final comment?
Yes, the very important one that you just showed, that when you're thinking the client is zoomed out because you're just talking, stop sharing the presentation and talk.
Yeah.
That's a big takeaway as well.
Yeah, even with the buyer presentation, you could do that, right? You might have it up on the screen, stop sharing and just keep talking just one-on-one like this. And then you can always pull it back up. That's a really, really good technique so that you don't lose them and they're just kind of glossed over, right? Okay, excellent. Shito, I think you unmuted. Did you come back? What was your takeaway?
Can you hear me? Sorry,
Yes.
I'm driving, so I couldn't unmute myself when you called my name. But now just sharing, I think first of all, I need to learn that pre-screening call is very important even before I go for the listing presentation. For me, that's a big takeaway. And then understanding what that seller is really, looking for. And then take that problem and try to solve it.
Yep, absolutely. Good stuff, guys. Well, we're at time, guys. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully you guys got some nuggets, practice this stuff, and get better, guys. Let's go take some listings. Let me know if you need anything.